Hello, I'm Jeff Kronschnabel, professor in charge of public policy and administration for St. Petersburg College. Since our last conversation, when we went through the syllabus, I've had some questions on what does a case study look like? What is a case study? How do I write up a case study? How do I present a case study? So what I've done is prepare some guidelines for you, and they're in the back of your syllabus now in great detail, but I want to take a second to go over them on camera to discuss some of the concerns you may have. So what is a case study? A case study is a story, and stories are just what they sound like. They tell a story about an issue, not a problem, but an issue that's been raised. So I'm going to go over some notes I made for you. Case studies are stories. They're formatted in such a way that at a glance one could easily determine the issue about to be discussed. We need to identify the who, what, where, why, when, and how. If you answer all of those questions, the reader is not left with questions as to issues that you haven't addressed. So we want to make sure we address the who, what, where, why, when, and how, so we cover the story in its entirety. Don't leave the reader again guessing. In public policy administration, one case study or story is needed for each one of your classes. Now, in the beginning, you're in this intro to public policy. The case studies are in your softcover text. They are real case studies involving fictional people, but they have not been resolved in the last 15 years. Water shortage, talking about privatization of prisons versus public prisons. AIDS, should it be public or private? The facts are contained within the case study, but they're complex, just like a real case study would be. Don't start out your story by saying, I have many issues. Don't start out your story by saying this is the main issue. Just choose an issue. So what does it look like? A paragraph or two for your reader to take you to where you need to be. Then in one sentence, issue, and you state it. It's not a problem because the problem is negative. It's an issue. The issue may be positive, may be negative, but it's an issue. Then the next part of your case study should have a little more detail to it. And what you want to talk to then is the people that are involved in this issue. Now, the majority of the people in this textbook you need to list, but there's people outside of the textbook that you might also want to look at. Maybe there's government employees that aren't mentioned in the textbook. Maybe there's citizens or businesses that aren't mentioned in the textbook. But you as a case study presenter need to think about that. So here's the issue. Who are all of the people involved in this issue? We call them stakeholders. That's your second step in what we call a four-step policy analysis. Your third step is, what are the perspectives of these stakeholders? If I was a city manager, how would I see this issue? If I was the mayor, how would I see this issue? If I was a businessman, if I was a policeman, if I was a gardener, if I was a homeowner, whatever it might be, this issue might come into play for any one of those particular people. So what we got here is for you to look at an issue, do your research on the issue, but verify, verify, verify. Because if you don't have the facts right, then your credibility is suspect. And you can't be 90% credible. Either you're 100% credible or you're not credible. So you want to make sure you're fact-based. When you look at that, you verify, verify, verify. Look at the fact that you're not going to write this as a thesis. I don't want a lot of fluff and stuff. I want facts. I've got the outline prepared for you in this guideline. When you present your paper, it'll be 6 to 10 pages. It'll have a cover sheet. It'll have this and it'll have that. And it's outlined in this thing as we're going through it today. So I'm going to look at this thing. We'll say the issue is clearly delineated. The people involved are clearly talked to. Their perspectives are clearly talked to. And then after I do my research to include a face-to-face interview of an expert in this respective area, and I go online, do my research, and any place else that is fact-based research that I can add, then from my life experience, I mix this all up, and I come out with a strong recommendation that somebody can look at and say, that makes sense. Maybe I want to look at this a little further. Think of delivering this to an administrator who's in basket, it's this high. If you don't capture that administrator in the first couple seconds, that particular project is not even read. You want to capture the reader. So now the four-step policy analysis, it's simplistic, but it's also thorough. There's sometimes a 7-step policy analysis. There's 11 steps, there's 12 steps. We did 4. The 4 again are identify an issue. Not a main issue, not lots of issues, but an issue. You select it. Identify the people involved in the issue. They're called stakeholders. Identify the stakeholders' perspectives that are involved in the issue. How would they think? Use your CSI hat. What would I think if I was in this position? Miles' Law says where one stands depends upon where one sits. So you're going to look at this in that kind of a detail. Then again, you go out for your research, you interview your expert, you look at your life experiences, and you do your online research. You come back with a strong recommendation. It's not a solution. If you name this a problem, it becomes a problem. If you name this a solution, it becomes, that's what I have to do, this is a solution. You're making a recommendation based on facts involving an issue. So don't change the language on me. Don't start putting other steps in it, just the 4 steps. Now, outside the periphery of the 4 steps, which you want to look at, and it's not considered part of your 4-step analysis as far as the issue, stakeholders, perspectives, and recommendation, but you want to look at the history of this particular case study. There's got to be some history to it. And you want to look at any laws pertaining to this case study. Maybe you can't make a recommendation because the law forbids it. Maybe your recommendation is to formulate a law. What's the history? What brought this to the table? Most issues don't happen overnight. They have some baggage attached. It's your job to find out how this came about. These prison system issues, the AIDS issue, etc., has a lot of history to it. So how do I begin? Well, case studies are complex and may contain a myriad of issues, stakeholders, etc. It's your job to select that one issue. It's your job to stay focused on that one issue. And it's your job then to look throughout the textbook at all the stakeholders involved and outside of the textbook for all the stakeholders involved. How do I set up my paper? Your paper should be APA writing style when completing your written piece of the case study paper. The evaluation presentation, what does that look like? You're going to do a video that you're going to submit to me. That'll be 15 minutes in length. If you have a partner, you're going to have to choreograph how you deliver that particular video. That video should outline these steps, should talk to the expert you visited, should mention all the things we just talked about, and it should be able to be done in 15 minutes. And then one thing I ask you to do with your expert, when you go to see your expert, you tell them that you're working on a case study, Public Policy Administration at St. Petersburg College. It allows you to see people that normally you can't get to see because there's certain gatekeepers that stop you from getting up to that level. Use this as an opportunity to see those people that are in charge. Use this as an opportunity to dress business casual or business. Use this as an opportunity to give them your business card. Use this as an opportunity to form a relationship with people that are in charge and actually may have an opportunity to look at you for future career aspirations. When you meet with them, have your questions prepared. When you first greet them, thank them for their time, give them the business card, and when they're ready, ask them the questions, then sit back and listen. Make your notes. Ask them at the very end, is there any kind of a special nugget that they would like to relate to the other classmates? Some people like to talk about things that they learned in their career choices, and we'd like to know what their perspective is on that. At the end, you want to thank that particular expert again. When you leave, email or give them a letter back thanking them one more time. What does that do? Well, think of yourself in a profession when somebody comes up to you and appreciates what you're doing, looking for your opinion, valuing your opinion, and saying thank you. You formed a relationship. The more relationships you form, the more contacts you have. The more contacts you have, the more effective you can be. That's why this is built into our program as far as the face-to-face interviews with experts. This particular case study in the intro course only requires that you interview one expert. If I was in your position, beginning career aspirations in public service, I would interview as many experts as I could, because each expert that I interview is a new contact, a new possible relationship, and new possible opportunities. So after you've done that, and you present it for your 15 minutes, we'll have some time to talk about online points of interest that you brought up. We'll be able to discuss that as a class, and I'll get into that when the time comes closer. Now, what does your paper look like? Well, it should be 6 to 10 pages, double-spaced, cover page, site page, and it's listed as we talked about before about the 4-step policy analysis and talking about the expert and talking about your research. So I've attached these other, part of the guidelines are ask yourself questions that help extract key information from the case. Diagnose the case. Define all of the different issues that are involved in the case and select one. Make well thought out fact-based decisions. Formulate your principles for how to handle future cases. In the field of public administration, the case study method is an action plan. That's what we use it for looking at possible resolution to community issues. It provides clarity of purpose for what needs to be accomplished to effectively connect citizens to governance. Now, in detail on page 4 or 5 of your guidelines, it'll take you step by step, again, of what I just talked to a few moments ago. It's going to mention, again, facts and events that make this up. It's going to mention about feelings, habits, attitudes, expectations of the key stakeholders. It's going to talk about a clear description of the setting, time, place, and physical and social environment that this took place. It's going to answer all the who, what, where, why, when, and how. The reader is not going to be left guessing. The reader is going to be involved. The reader is going to be interested. And the reader will have their own perspective. But what you provided for them was a roadmap on how do we evaluate where and if they want to take this further. I would say in closing on this particular short video, trust in your own life experience and your own instincts. And if you have any question anytime, always feel free to call me. My number is listed on your syllabus. Thank you very much for your time today. Look forward to working with you.